Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. Today I am going to be reviewing volume 1 of Solo Leveling, and this is an original story, or the original story of this is by Chugong. So this is what the cover looks like. Kind of has an interesting cover. I like it. It's a comic and I checked it out of my library, if that isn't obvious. So I was just kind of drawn to this expecting a fun fantasy novel, which is exactly what it is and what I got. I wasn't entirely sure on maybe the suggested age range for this book when I checked it out. It was shelved with the adult books in my section, or in my library in the adult book section. And I would definitely say this steers more towards older teen. It is rated older teen on the back of the book. So just because the front has like this fun fantasy cover, I would say there is quite a bit of violence. Not very super graphically depicted violence, but there is violence in this book, and this is definitely something that maybe you should be cautious of giving to like a younger reader, unless as a parent you're okay with maybe someone in elementary school reading this. That would just be my caution. I know that sometimes with comics it can be hard to tell the level of maybe violence or graphic depictions that are going to be used in it going in. But I really enjoyed this book, so I wanted to give my review of it. This book follows the world as it is today, except there have been these portals that open to dungeons, and the dungeons can spew monsters out of them. The dungeons take these portals that open to the dungeons take 7 days to fully mature, and in that time the world sends people who are called hunters in to kind of kill everything and close the gate to that portal so that they won't come out in the world. Hunters are these people who have additional powers and abilities, and they're kind of awakened into being, so you don't train to be one, you're just kind of called, but there's different power levels within hunters. So some hunters are more powerful than others, and you're given a rank, and that rank kind of determines what kind of monsters you can fight and how powerful you all are. You can make good money if you're a really good hunter, but if you're a low range or low rank hunter, you're probably not going to make a lot of money. And we are following Jinwoo Sung in this book. He's the main character on the cover, who is an E rank hunter, which is pretty low. So he isn't really powerful, and he also tends to not make it out of the dungeons in one piece. He tends to get hurt a lot. He's not doing very well. It's probably not a great career choice for him, but the career is covering his mother's medical bills and his sister to attend university, so he keeps doing it because he wants to help his family. He goes in on what's supposed to be a routine mission. He knows he's probably going to get beat up, but he goes in because he needs the money, and it turns out to be a dungeon within a dungeon, which is a very anomalous situation, and the dungeon within the dungeon winds up being much more powerful than the people expected. So there's like a bureaucratic organization that sees how powerful a dungeon is and then sends in appropriately ranked hunters to clear the area so that they can close the gate and get on with it. You don't want to send your top hunters to carry out something that maybe like a low or mid-tier hunter can carry out and take care of. So the dungeon within the dungeon, like the sub-dungeon, is much more difficult and winds up taking out a lot of people. But in the case of that dungeon, things get really, really weird, and we come to find out that Jinwoo isn't maybe as dumb or he's not a very powerful hunter at this point, but he's able to start solving the puzzles in the dungeon, and things start to get weird, and people start doing things out of self-preservation, even though Jinwoo sees that they can't act out of self-preservation if they want to survive the dungeon. And at the end of the sub-dungeon, something happens. And I'm going to leave the reveal out of this in case you want to read this volume yourself. But Jinwoo experiences something that isn't supposed to happen, isn't normal, and he is very confused as to what it does. So now he's starting to see things and experience things in his real life that are not normal. He's just an E-rank hunter. He's lowly. He's not supposed to get very far in the hunter world. But all of a sudden he is, getting out of he got out of the dungeon, which was already kind of rare because it killed so many people. And now he's starting to experience things that he can't explain and other people can't see. and he's not really sure what to make of it. I was captivated by this volume. I really enjoyed it. I liked following Jinwoo's storyline. I immediately read volume 2 following this. So if you are looking for a new fantasy comic series to start, I can recommend Solo Leveling volume 1. I think there can be a lot of opportunity for growth. There's a lot of interesting characters that can be developed. I think I'm really excited to see how Jinwoo's storyline plays out, and I'm really excited about the world. I like the fact that it's mostly the world that we recognize with a few different changes. I think that's an interesting concept or play. I like it when when a fantasy comic or a fantasy story can be told in a world that's very similar to ours, but just a little different. I think that's very interesting, and it shows good writing. I think the art was really well done, and like I said, it is a little bit geared towards maybe a slightly older audience, maybe not for young kids, but I did like it, and I'm very sensitive to like excessive depictions of violence, and I didn't feel like it was too excessive for me. So if you're worried about that, I personally wasn't bothered by it, and I tend to get bothered by excessive shows of violence easily, so just keep that in mind. I did read volume 2 right after, so I can recommend it, and I can say that volume 2 is equally as good. So if you're looking for a new series to start, I can recommend Solo Leveling. If you have any thoughts on this, have read the series, have any other suggestions that are similar to it, I'd love to check it out. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.